Hi, I'm Steve Miller. Let me show you how to attach strobes onto the Ikelite DSLR system. This part is pretty easy. The first thing we're going to do is locate the bulkhead on the back of the housing. There'll be a waterproof cap on here for diving without lights, so you can remove this cap and then find your cord and your strobe. Now, in this case, we're using a dual TTL cable so that we can run two separate strobes simultaneously and have them both controlled by the camera. Keep in mind this will only happen once you've hooked up the hot shoe cord inside of the camera to your camera's hot shoe. That's how it's going to communicate with your strobes. So let's first go ahead and hook up the cables, and then we'll hook up our arms. When your cables are sent to you and during storage, you'll find that the threads and the pins inside of these cables are protected, and that's for pretty obvious reasons. These are fragile and very important. And then, of course, we have our ever-present O-ring inside of each of these cords. Now, one end, we like to call this a pigtail sometimes, one end of the pigtail is going to go into the camera's body, into our bulkhead. And then, obviously, each of these two ends are going to go to my right and my left strobe. So first we'll hook up the bulkhead to the back of the camera. You're going to see two pins and two adjacent holes inside the bulkhead that will match up. When this goes together, it goes together very much like a plug. You'll feel them seat into position. When you go to tighten this ring, when you snug this up, please remember, hand tight. You don't even have to go to the end of the thread. What the threads are doing is holding these two pieces in position. The O-ring has already long been in contact with its seating surface. So if you crank this down really hard, even just with your hand, sometimes it'll freeze and be difficult to undo when you get a little bit of saltwater corrosion going on. I try to go till it's just snug and then feel that where it wants to stop, stop there. Definitely never use a wrench on this section. From there, the other two ends of the pigtail are going to go to your right and left strobe. So we'll go ahead and hook these up, and it's exactly the same assembly and the same pin and socket configuration. This is something that is always done very slowly, very carefully, and only hand tight. You would inspect these O-rings in the same way that you would inspect the body O-rings on the DSLR system or the ports itself. Okay. Now my system is corded, which means I've protected all of the holes. So this system is basically waterproof at this point. I can take it into the water. And then the last step is going to actually be to mount the strobes onto their base. This is done with a quick release. It seats in with this silver button on the back, locks it in place very strong. So you pull off little protectors for traveling, depress the quick release. The quick release is there in case you want to hand hold your strobe in the middle of a dive. But these are designed to be very, very strong and support the weight of the strobes. Okay, at this point, my strobes are hooked up, my cords are hooked up. I am essentially ready to move on to the dunk tank, the rinse tank, and basically into the ocean at that point. This system is waterproof, everything is functional. I can turn my strobes on, my camera's on, I can turn things off and move around the different menus, and I can do that whether I'm dry or wet at this point. So my final step would be to walk this unit out to the rinse tank, give it a quick dump, look for any bubbles, and by the way, you'll always see bubbles coming out of these handles, don't let them scare you. But look for bubbles, make sure that all your O-rings are in place, and then you're ready to get into the water.